What's going on? It's been a while since I made a new video. So, before the new year, I wanted to drop something. Hope everybody's been doing well. And I want to talk about, I apologize to some of the people who've been giving me their contact information. I really don't give my contact information on YouTube because a lot of people try to dox and expose people and stuff. So I really don't, I don't deal with that. But I wanted to talk about I'm going to drop more videos and the quality of my videos are going to increase and become better. But right now it's just a format of getting stuff out and kind of correcting bullshit that we learned through history. And this video is specifically to tell you that there has never been a time in the Western world that the woman has been oppressed. It's always been the man. Now, contrary to what we're taught by feminists and simps, which mean, most simps are basically men who are trying to garner respect from women because they know men won't respect them. That's why when you hear people say stuff like the woman is God and all this stuff, well, she is a goddess in her divine feminine energy, but she's not God. So it takes a man and a woman. It takes the moon and the sun to create life, which the sun is the masculine figure and the moon is the feminine and more calming nature. So in the Western world, the woman has never been oppressed. And a lot of people lie. So we're going to go through some of the laws in history that have passed this. And I'm going to explain them in a greater context of a geopolitical sense and let you understand what's going on. So in the 1600s, Massachusetts, a 17th century law in Massachusetts announced that women would be subject to the same treatment as witches if they lured men into marriage via the use of high heel shoes. Okay, that is a dumb policy, but if you go through most states, they all have dumb laws. Now, the reason why the women were subjected to this treatment is feudal land tenure. Remember, when I told you feudal land, it all has to do with property. So if you're the daughter of a slave, you're a slave. So then the people could make all these laws and all this BS, and it somewhat applies to you unless you can prove that it doesn't. It's called an implied contract. So we're going to get into this, and I'm going to explain to you kind of how things got to where, feminism was implemented to create a divide. In this case, in 1641, will show you how feminism was implemented, or the starting of feminism. Even though it wasn't started, they were trying to drive a wedge between the man and the woman. Because as I said before, everything has to deal with estate. Okay, in 1641, Massachusetts, the 1641 Body Liberties of Massachusetts Bay Colonists. Remember, this is colonism. This has nothing to do with so-called Native Americans or so-called autonomous Americans. This is all English feudal law. Okay, declares that a married woman should be free from bodily connection or stripes by her husband. Now, if you see this is these colonists. They are trying to drive a wedge between the woman and the man. This is where the state is trying to intervene and, to drive a wedge between the two. Okay. So, you hear women through feminism feminists talking about, women have been oppressed for so long. It's BS. I'm going to go through all of these laws and I'm going to show you throughout history why these laws are set up and how these laws are set up and why feminism was garbage and it was just an attempt to make women taxable. Okay, in 1662, the Virginia colony passed a law incorporating the principle of partus seguntur ventum. That's some crazy stuff. Ruling that children of enslaved mothers will be born into slavery, regardless of the father's race or status. What? That's why I told you in America, racism is bullshit. It's all classism. So then they use racism to basically muddy the waters of classism. Everything has to do with class. So let me read that again just so you can hear it. The Virginia colony passed a law incorporating the principle of partis seguitur ventum. I'm sorry, that's Latin, so I should have ran it through my Latin thing so it could teach me how to say it properly. Ruling the children of enslaved mothers will be born into slavery, regardless of their father's race or status. This was in contradiction to English common law for English subjects, which based their child's status on that of their father. Okay, you have to understand there is a patrilineage and a matrilineage. Okay, so in English law, the patrilineage went through the father, and this process is turning it through the matrilineage, and you can see actually it was a matriarchy, but what happened was through this matrilineage change or shift, it all had to deal with the escheatment of property. Okay, because the father was property, he had no right to make policy or laws, so the lords made laws so their property would escheat back to the lord. Now let me read what partis seguitur ventum. Man, this is partis seguitur venturum. Sorry, there we go. In history of slavery, the legal doctrine of partis. Okay, I'm not gonna say that shit again. That which brought forth follows the belly. So that which brought forth follows the belly. Also was used from 1662 in Virginia and later other English royal colonies to establish the legal status of children born. They were considered to follow the status of their mothers. So this means that they're kind of under the Talmud. Okay, therefore, children of the enslaved women were born into slavery. Those born to free white women, even if indentured servants, were born free. The legal doctrine of, I'm not going to say that again, derived from Roman civil law, which concerned personal property, chattels. In colonial law, the partis doctrine was used to justify enslavement as chattel personal of native peoples of the Americas and Africa, where the Spanish Empire, we're gonna get to the Spanish Inquisition, 1492 through 1976, the Portuguese Empire, 1543 through 1775, the French colonial empire, and the Dutch Empire established settler colonies to exploit the natural resources of the New World. Also, the colonial British America, 1607 through 1783, the partis doctrine passed into law in 1662 in the Virginia colony, established that children were born into the social status. Now you understand social security of their mother. Unlike English common law, which is built under the patrilineage, in which the father's status was determinative. Thus, de facto and de jure slave status apply to every child born to an enslaved woman. Okay. So now we can go to the context of white, and white is a class, a socioeconomic class. So so-called black people in the United States are not black. You can go to the Census Bureau and it will verify this. And I might do a video on that and explain how that happened also. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to break up estates, because under English feudal law, the patrilineage means the estate transfers by the name of the father. So what they did is, usually when a woman takes on a name or marriage, what happens is she takes on the name of the man. So this causes a break in the trust or the estate. So if the name of that man is of a feudal lord or someone who has of status, then the property in that name still remains with that feudal lord. Do you understand? So let's see. As a function of the political economy of chattel slavery, the legitimism of, okay, I'm tired of saying that again, exempted the biological father from his food and shelter obligations under English common law. Now, the reason why they set this up under English common law, this is where, this exempted the mother, because they're using the woman to be property of the state. Okay, so under Roman civil law, they make it a matriarch. This is why you see the Pope bowing down to the Black Madonna. He is stepping in the role of the so-called father of the so-called black man. So he's stepping in the role, showing a conquering. Okay, so don't think that this is about race. I'm telling you the truth. So when you see the Pope, you'll see a picture of the Black Madonna, and you will see the Pope bowing down or giving his credence. It does not mean that the woman or the feminine nature is exalted. It was his way to escheat. And I need to go back even further and show y'all how these wars, these holy wars created, but most of it started out of the Spanish Inquisition. And the reason why they wanted the matrilineage, because women are, and I don't mean any disrespect, you're very impressionable. Women will go with the conqueror, not the conquered. So this is why you have such problems in modern day society with women and men, because women go with the conqueror, i.e. the government. They believe that the government should dictate to them things, and they shouldn't. Case in point, I went to Philadelphia. Me and this woman were talking, and she was like calling this senator and sending letters to this senator. And I asked her, I said, don't you have a man at home? And she's like, yeah, I'm married. I said, well, then why don't you complain to your husband? Why are you complaining to a politician? He doesn't owe you nothing. And she looked at me like she wanted to smack my face off, but she looked so stunned that a dude actually talked to her like that. But she, shortly after that, she left and went upstairs. So I was someplace where I was getting food and some drink or something. But this is why they know that women will look to the government or the state. That's why a majority of women turn out and vote. You see what I'm saying? What they're doing is they're counting their property and placing a lien against it. Once you vote, all your information becomes public record. So you become public domain. Okay, so as a function, I'm going to read that again because I went on a diatribe. As a function of a political economy of chattel slavery, the legitimism of partis seguntrum ventrum, oh my God, I'm butchering that, exempted the biological father from his food and shelter obligations. Under this English common law towards children, he fathered with the slave woman. So what they're trying to say is the state or the estate or the plantation, which a plantation is nothing more than an estate or a job or a job. He doesn't have any obligations to the children. Now, the denial of paternity to slave children secured the slaveholders the right to profit from exploiting the labor of the children endangered, bred, and born into slavery. So by setting up a matrilineage and breaking the patrilineage, where the escheatment of property came, it made the children perpetual slaves. Look at your birth certificate. Look at your certificate of live birth or your settlement certificate. That's why you're having such hell. Okay. But it also meant that mixed race children, this is why they push integration, born to a white woman, were born free. Earlier generations of families of free people of color. Color is a different context. It is not so-called black people. Color is, it's basically fiction. In the Upper South were formed unions between the working class, white women, and African American or African American men. All right, so I'm not going to get into all of this. I'm going to get back to what this is because I can get on the diatribe. I could talk about history for just hours and you'd be like, whoa. So in 1664, Maryland declared that English women who married a slave had to live as a slave of her husband's master, meaning the boss. So when you go to a 9 to 5, you wonder why a woman is biologically intrigued by a man who is a boss. This is why women who work in their workplace sleep with bosses. They don't sleep with employees as much as they may sleep with male bosses. I used to work at a job in a call center where the women would sleep with all of the bosses. This is why they did it, because they were trying to break the chain and make it to where they can set up a new chain in the new world, so-called, even though this is the older world. But that's not here nor there. Providence of Pennsylvania, now a United States of Pennsylvania, married women allowed to own and manage property in their own name during the incapacity of their spouse, meaning slavery, death, war. Now, we've already said that once the woman receives this property, it becomes part of the state. This was the reason why they did it. Okay? So they allowed the women to do that. So when the women, so all of this stuff where they were telling you that women were oppressed, they weren't. They were used to oppress men. In 1820 through the 1900s, primarily through the efforts of physicians and the American Medical Association and legislators, most abortions in the United States were outlawed. In 1821, Maine, married women allowed to own property and manage property in their own name. See, that breaks the patrilineage and sets up a new matrilineage. It doesn't make it right. I've heard one of these grand sheiks give y'all some lying information, but people have some type of agenda. You know, most men that push this all women, women are oppressed stuff. They know that these young bucks coming up are going to be more informed and stronger than them. And then they're going to lose their role in society. So that's why they pander to women and placate to women to kind of keep their dominance over the woman and hope that the dominance lasts over the man. So the man doesn't believe in himself. This is why on my website, I try to teach you men to be men and create your own reality. Okay, so let me read that again because I was yammering again. 1821, Maine, married women were not allowed to own and manage property. Were allowed to own and manage property in their own name during the incapacity of their spouse. Connecticut, a law targeted apothecaries who sold poisons to women for the purpose of inducing an abortion. Yeah, because the child is considered a slave, just like I told you. A child born of a slave is considered property. So that's why they have a mitigation over abortion. Do I agree with abortion? I personally don't. I believe that you should protect yourself and conduct yourself like a normal human being, and meaning don't get pregnant if you're not ready to get pregnant. But that's my own theory. But if a woman is raped or whatever, I think that she should have a way of aborting that child or giving it up for adoption. New York made post-quickening abortions a felony. Now, remember, if you commit a felony or a crime under the 13th Amendment, you become what? A slave. All of this has to do with property. None of this has to do with women. It has to do with property. A pre-quickening abortion, a misdemeanor. In 1835, Arkansas, married women allowed to own but not control. Remember, ownership doesn't mean shit if you don't control something. Property in their own name. Massachusetts, 1835, married women allowed to own and manage property in their own name during the incapacity of their spouse. Tennessee, married women allowed to own and manage property in their own name during the incapacity of a spouse. Now remember, the context of the word marrying means to join together. So if your husband is a slave and the woman is a slave, when they become married, they become as one slave. Now we can get into the 3/5 compromise another time, but I'm not going to get into all of that. But we're just going to get through this and power through this because I don't like making long videos anyway. Okay, so in 1840, Maine, married women were not allowed to own, but were not allowed to own, but control property in their own name. 1841, Maryland, married women allowed to own, but not control. See? Why do you think they set up all these laws? They set up the laws so all of the property becomes abandoned property and then it's cheats back to the state. New Hampshire, married women allowed to own and manage property in their own name during the incapacity of their spouse. 1843, Kentucky, married women allowed to own and manage property in their own name during the incapacity of their spouse. Maine, 1844, married women gain separate economy. See, they were already trying to divvy the woman from the man. All they're trying to do is separate you and take your children and make you slaves. 1844, Maine, married women granted trade licenses, meaning they were allowed into commerce. Doesn't mean they weren't doing commerce without the license, but that means that that's another fee that is attached to you that you have to pay and maintain, and you can be fined. And you see what I'm saying? So they're all just tricking these women into slavery by saying, oh, you don't have these rights. Massachusetts, married women granted separate economy. 1845, New York, married women granted patent rights. Florida, married women allowed to own but not control property in their own name. Yeah, because your name, when they set up the matrilineage, your name basically became a property of the state. So 1846, Alabama, married women allowed but not to own property. And you're going to see this all through 1846. Kentucky, Ohio, it's the same. Michigan, 1848, New York, Married Women Property Act granted married women separate economy. They were always trying to divide the woman from the man. It has nothing to do with feminism. It has nothing to do with a vagina. It has to do with a state. Pennsylvania, married women granted separate economy. Rhode Island, married women granted separate economy. The reason why they wanted to get women into a separate economy because they become taxable. All of this has to do with taxes in a state. 1848, Alabama, married women weren't allowed to own, married women allowed to own, manage property in their name during the incapacity of their spouse. You have to understand, wars and all this stuff is going on. This is why rich men create wars, because what happens is the women are at home by themselves. So when the women are at home by themselves, the men are out dying. What happens is if something happens to the man, he doesn't come back, and say the woman dies, the woman passes on the lineage to the children, and then the state comes in and steps in, and they do an escheatment and steal the property anyway. Or they, creditors come after it. It's just a trick. So in Connecticut in 1849, women were allowed to own property in incapacity of their spouse. Missouri, married women allowed to own but not control property in their name. Now, look at all of these laws. They don't have nothing to do with single women. Did I bring up single women? No. These are all marriage. These people have been lying to you. Feminists and these hotep ass motherfuckers, they have been lying to you, telling you that women have been oppressed. It has always been the man. It has never been the woman. It has always been the man. They use the woman to oppress the man. And you can see it in today. You don't even need me to go through all of these laws, because I will be going through them for a minute. Oh damn, I didn't know this was that long. Yes. Most of this has to do with married women. Yep. Married. So if you look at the context of the word married in general has to do with joining. That means if you're a slave and I marry you under the state, we made a slave contract. That means this is why when you go into court and you file for divorce, this is why the judge doesn't have to listen to either one of you. The judge can administer what he sees fit. That goes back to the Spanish Inquisition. That goes back to a lot of it, because during the Spanish Inquisition, they issued a papal bull called Dumb Devices, that all non-Christians were basically booty or property. But I can go into that another day. But this is a long ass video, so I'm out.